Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Suman Sidhu, Director of Application Development at Scotiabank, and I will be your host for today's session. Shortly, Scotiabank experts will be joining us from our products, technology, and international business teams for a panel discussion. Our panelists will discuss how Scotiabank, through our core modernization activities, driven from a Canadian domestic perspective, are enabling digital native solutions for our clients that provide core capabilities across our global footprint. Following the panel, we will open the floor to the audience for a Q&A. So please feel free to use the chat window and send us your questions anytime. But before we kick off today's panel discussion, let me introduce you to our panelists joining us here today. First off, we have Greg Lahn, Senior Vice President and Global Head of Engineering for Commercial Banking and Payments at Scotiabank. Greg is focused on accelerating the build of global technology products, advancing Scotiabank's engineering capabilities while improving stability for all business lines across Scotiabank's global footprint. Next, we have Dougal Middleton, Vice President of Enterprise Payments at Scotiabank. As the executive lead for the Payments Modernization Program at Scotiabank, Dougal is responsible for the delivery of modernization business strategy, which includes the alignment of payments roadmaps across retail, business, and international banking. We have Joseph Villamizar, Vice President of International Transaction Banking at Scotiabank. Joseph supports the cash management products through multiple physical and electronic channels to the bank's business customers in Mexico, LATAM, and Caribbean through the development and delivery of multi-product strategies and training programs. Last but not the least, we've got Kim Salti, Director for North American Business Payment Products at Scotiabank. Kim currently leads the product management team for the development of business payment products and services across Canada. Dougal will be guiding us through the panel discussion. And so with that, I will be passing it over to Dougal to kick it off.
Awesome. Thank you, Suman. And maybe just for the audience's benefit, Greg, you're really the linchpin here to our global payments product teams across our footprint when it comes to the technology and the infrastructure associated with our payments business. Joseph, Kim, really the primary benefactors here as the product leads of our international and domestic markets, respectively. You're really the ones that are, taking the investments that we're making in our modernization journey and making it real for end clients across the different jurisdictions of our footprint. But collectively, we're all deeply involved here in creating value for our clients through our investments in the payment space across our footprint. Really wanted to take a look at sort of what does it mean here in terms of everything that we're doing on our modernization and digitization journey, and how we can scale these across our footprint to benefit our end clients in the commercial and corporate space. As we all know, modernization is a massively global phenomenon. There's a huge transformation happening, especially with a lot of the accelerant that's been injected into the ecosystem as a result of the pandemic. And on the digital front, with all the investments that Scotiabank's making in Canada, I want to take a look at sort of how we're taking advantage of these and driving scale through the footprint. So maybe we'll start with you, Kim. How are you in the product space really taking advantage of these investments that we're making in modernization to complement your product set in Canada?
So what we're doing in Canada, thanks Dougal, and hi everybody. So what we're focusing on here is we want to make sure that we are still keeping customer top of mind in everything that's coming in with modernization. These aren't small changes for customers. It could be big shifts in how they're doing their business. So we really want to make sure we're having those discussions up front with the customers before we go ahead and build something and then just push it out the door. So how we're doing it is we start with customer journeys. So we map them on our side internally. Then we have sessions with our corporates and our customers who are going to use those to make sure that we're one, speaking the same language, two, we have the same pain points, and three, we're going to a common goals where we want to drive that to. And then we keep customers engaged throughout the development phase. So we keep in mind in focus groups when we have prototypes or things we want to show them. And then finally, we're going over the launches as we did with the recent one where we did some cross-border initiatives that use some modernization rails. We had them on a beta phase, and what we actually thought was going to happen was a little bit different than both what the customer and what ourselves had thought. We originally thought it would start cannibalizing or shift away from an existing payment type, and really what we found was they were using it in a completely different way than we thought. So that was a good learning from Scotiabank and for the customers as well, because we could make sure that when we go out on this rail, now we're all on the same page and we're getting more use, and the customers are going to see more benefits.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. And Joseph, in terms of your international footprint, what unique capabilities is our footprint really providing us, and how are you taking advantage of them to deliver value through your product base?
Thank you, Dougal. As you know, we have been growing in our international footprint via acquisitions. During the last probably 10 years, Scotiabank has been acquiring various banks in Chile, Colombia, Peru, and Central America. Now, with the Payments Modernization Program, we have found ways to integrate these platforms to provide standard services to our multinationals. And we are building better technology, integrating that with our payments hubs here in Canada, and also bringing some of those legacy clouds. Because when you do these acquisitions, you, of course, also acquire some legacy, and modernizing this platform, bringing them to the cloud, creating microservices to better serve our customers.
Excellent, thanks. And that's a good point, Joseph. I think legacy has always been sort of one of those challenges that every FI is trying to work with as we modernize and digitize so much of the value chain. And so, Greg, from a technology perspective, really, how are we bringing together the domestic and international capabilities and the footprints together through those types of transformative technologies we're implementing?
Before I get into the answer, Dougal, thanks and welcome everyone. I'm still struggling with the linchpin in the introduction. I've never thought of myself that way, and it's caught me off guard. But I think Scotiabank's got a unique global footprint. We've got solutions that have come up through, as Joseph mentioned, acquisitions. And one of the challenges is that we've got a lot of different solutions. But from a technology perspective, what it is allowing us to do is to take a really hard look at all the solutions we've got out there and determine which ones are the best of breeds, and then really focus on building out the capabilities within that one solution and then leveraging it globally. It's going to enable us to reduce costs dramatically, but it's more about bringing our global employee base to bear on single solutions, and we can accelerate the deployment of them. That's the real thing for me and what I'm really focused on.
Right, and part of the challenges that we face is that sort of juxtaposition between domestic markets and everything that we're doing here in the domestic space, and to Joseph's point, how we're making use of some of the stronger capabilities that maybe we have in other jurisdictions, but also trying to knit them together where it makes sense versus rebuild or start something fresh and brand new to give us the future state capabilities.
No, it's a great point. Like it's part of the challenge. We got a number of challenges from that perspective. First of all, we've got two languages that we work in, and not everybody is bilingual. That poses some challenges, but we've found some neat ways with the way we constructed our teams globally to get around that. And the experience over the last year has been really interesting because I was a firm believer, and many people have probably heard me talk about Agile in the past. And I always thought that we had to have people set up in one location, and they had to be really collaborating within that physically collaborating within the same space. With the last 16, 17 months, whatever it is now, I'm losing track. I've really changed my opinion on how we can the composition of our teams essentially, and how we can work together. And it's been a tremendous experience over the last 17 months, notwithstanding all the bad things that have come along with it. But it's really taught us about a new way to work, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I guess that's the key, right? Is that with our footprint, we can come up with some unique ways to deliver and structure our teams and be able to execute across the footprint, but stay true to sort of the modernization goals. So maybe we could touch on what are some of those challenges that we face beyond some of the language and some of the jurisdictional things, Joseph, and how are we actually responding to some of those challenges across our footprint?
Well, there are a couple that come to my mind. One, of course, local regulators. They are different. They see things different. They see risk different, and you need to adapt because you need to comply. And being a multinational bank means that we need to comply with OSFI because we're a Canadian bank, but we need to comply with the local regulator, whatever is the higher standard. So that's number one. The other one is in some of these countries, you will have big probably government-owned corporations that drive some of the changes in the market, in the ecosystem. So how you make those decisions, how do you prioritize what to change is important. Have a framework of work is like Greg mentioned, like being a data-driven organization to help the teams make the right decision when these situations and these prioritizations are required to move forward the modernization agenda.
Yeah, I think just to build on that, one thing that I've learned is that, one of the things that we grappled with in Canada was legacy. Well, go internationally, and it is exponentially harder. It's like, as Joseph mentioned, there are significant players in the market that generally can be tied to governments that really can state what their standards are going to be. So when I look at how many message types that we've got and support in our markets, it has given me some sleepless nights, to be honest, in how are we going to migrate those customers over to the latest standard. Not to mention the fact that how the standards are deployed in every country are vastly different, and they're at different timelines. They're at different stages within their evolution. So the complexity of it is sometimes daunting, but there is an opportunity to go in with a global offering and have a real value proposition that will hopefully drive customers to a standard.
Yeah, and the standard of ISO coming about, it's all well and good, but everybody knows it's not a panacea. That element of localization is obviously a challenge. But to Joseph's point, when things are being pushed from Colombia in one direction, things are being pushed in Peru in another direction, there's a lot to think about there on the infrastructure layer and a lot of things on the messaging layer that we have to kind of make sure that we can grapple with, not to mention the needs of the corporate and commercial client base that may not be as far ahead in the journey, or maybe bleeding edge on the journey and pushing us to a new way of
and I think you're touching on a great point there, Dougal. Like in my conversations with some of these large corporations, they are also trying to decide what to do next. No? Should they move to the cloud? Should they upgrade their ERP? Should they improve their payments systems, their invoicing system? They also have their backlog. They also have their legacy. So readiness and understanding the readiness of the market and some of these customers is important. That will also help us to prioritize and to organize how we are going to deliver the value that we can deliver to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of move at the pace of the market, but oftentimes the demands of the modernization agenda is sort of a couple steps ahead, right? In response to that. So, across our footprint, there's a lot of activity taking place. I think I just saw a keynote from MasterCard. There's more than 70 countries live or implementing real-time payment capabilities as national infrastructure coming about. And so with that, a big part of everything that we're doing right now is sort of that shift from batch to real time and making sure we're making the investments in the infrastructure and the operating models to accommodate that eventual shift into that on-demand service set. But as we continue to move forward, looking at what's happening and popping up across our footprint becomes even more of a priority to ensure that we can kind of think through how we best deploy against these faster payment schemes. But what kind of values are we seeing, on the real-time payments from both domestically and internationally? Maybe, Kim, we could start with you, given some of our activity that we had announced back in December.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so obviously in Canada, we've been investing in the real-time payments for over a year and change now. And as of November, we launched the ability for our business customers to start sending real-time payments. So that's been slowly upticking. Again, this is it's a shift in how customers do business, right? They're used to batch, they're used to wire payments, they're used to different types of transactions. So there was a big education piece, first of all, but there was sort of a pent-up demand to some degree in some spaces because we handle, small business all the way up to corporates, right? So our small business, they're like, I can do this on retail. Like, let's get on the ball and why can't I make my payments faster? So they were a little easier to adapt, but again, the need was really on the corporate commercial side because they want those funds as quick as they can get it. So as soon as we open up the door to be like, hey, you can now start accepting your payments in real time, we had a number of people signing up quicker than we expected for sure. We were expecting to be a slower trickle, and as soon as we opened up the doors and had the capabilities, they can do them online, they can do them host to host, it started to floodgate, and we're expecting it to even grow. As all the other banks start to come online in June, we're really expecting the real-time rail to ramp up and see additional volume, and of course that means additional demands on the banks to keep up with the new pain points that we create, so to speak, and then also continue to improve enhancements, speed to market of their cash, and really making sure that they can take all they can get of the benefits out of what we're doing modernize why. So it's not just internally we're modernizing, it's how do we make sure that that is upfront for the customer and they're seeing the benefits of the investments that all the banks are doing.
Yeah, that's a great call. I mean, the ecosystem is a big factor of this, and I think that first foray using some of the capabilities that Interac has on the e-transfer suite of services has been a key first step as we start to plan ahead for the inevitable real-time rail here with Payments Canada, right? Greg, maybe you can talk to sort of what the implications are here as we shift towards real-time infrastructures. How are we really looking at this as we expand across real-time product development and whatnot?
Well, it's interesting because as I've gone through and looked at each country, every country's at a different state in its journey on real time. Some of them have been in real-time payments for quite a while, and we can learn quite a bit operationally from those countries. Especially around fraud and AML and other parts of the 24/7 operation have really benefited us from a learnings perspective. And then, we've got Canada where we've made massive investments in our infrastructure, our orchestration to be ready for 24/7. And we continue to make investments. But then there's a bunch of other countries that are the regulators are just talking about the possibility of real-time payments in their jurisdiction. And that's where we can really bring all the assets that we have and the learnings from all of the countries and decide, what's the best footprint for us from a technology perspective and an operational perspective that's going to enable us to be successful in that market. And, that's one of the exciting parts. It's great to see the opportunity for us to leverage stuff that we've done as part of our PayMod program, but it's also an opportunity for the people that have participated in the program to get experience in other markets and then really demonstrate what they've learned over the last couple of years and will continue to learn over the coming months.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll touch on some of the people components as we get through more of the discussion. Joseph, maybe you can touch on some of the interesting things that have come about recently. I know we had some activity in the real-time space in Peru. Maybe you can elaborate on some of that in your product set.
Yeah, in Peru, it is an interesting case because as Greg mentioned, a lot of the changes have been driven by central banks or regulators pushing the agenda of real-time payments. In the case of Peru, the banks get together and develop a P2P platform named Plin that is already live and that is having a huge adoption in the market. So it started as a P2P, and now they are in thoughts to move to pay to merchant. So definitely the bank has been very active with this platform, marketing this, generating adoption. As you know, we are the third largest bank in Peru. So we have a great scale, and we have pushing the agenda of real-time payments down there as well.
Awesome. And we participate obviously in the platforms in Mexico, and some of the more advanced investments that have been made down there with Cody and the QR code base. We're still waiting for things like that to take hold here in Canada and really come to market, but we've got that experience from Mexico, to Greg's point, that we can draw on from various teams that have been involved in that.
Mexico in real-time payments, and you see Mexico is the opposite case. Central bank driving the adoption of a change. So they were mature already in real-time payments for like universal transfer, both for person to person and B2B. But now they are trying to disrupt the merchant acquiring business with Cody, trying to reduce the cost and increase the adoption. As you know, the bancarization in Mexico is one of the lowest in the region, in the Americas. They are around 35 to 40%. So definitely the central bank is being very active in changing the way the Mexicans transact or pay to generate or to increase the adoption of banking products and accounts.
Great. Thanks for the additional color. Kim, you had mentioned this, and Joseph, you touched on it, but at the top of mind is always the customer, right? And so when we look at the need of the customer across our footprint, especially in the corporate commercial space, what are the things that we are really hearing from them, and where maybe do they differ across our footprint? So maybe Kim, we start with you. What are you hearing from our client base, mainly stationed here in North America?
So as we move to digital, I think a lot of our customers, now we're, as you said, Dougal, we're 18 months into the pandemic. So at the beginning, we've been having conversations about helping our customers digitize their payments for years, right? COVID was a push to a lot of them who maybe a little be susceptible of making that change. And the things they're thinking about hasn't changed, right? It's security of digital payments. The good side is the quicker access to capital, and of course, reducing manual operations on their own side. So what we've seen is as we've taken the customers on the journey through the digital side is the fraud piece and the security keeps coming up because there's the mindset like, well, if I'm holding the paper, it's got to be more secure than me pushing some buttons on the computer. And so I think with that flip now, people have seen that it's actually the opposite, right? Fraudsters know that that's where it's going. So I have a lot more touch points when I'm mailing you a check that I can open the check. I have to, go to a mailbox. I'm talking to a customer. Even internally in an organization, the paper passes hands through 6 other people, right? With a digital payment, I'm keying it in. That's it. It gets sent to the processor and then it goes off to the customer, especially in the case of like an Interact, right? There's 2 touch points. That's pretty much it. And when you talk auto deposit, you're down to 1, right? There's no interception of an email. There's nothing else there. So it's really having those constant conversations with the customers about really digital doesn't mean less secure. Right? We have a lot of things we've put in place to make sure that's the case. And then access to capital is a pretty easy one to explain because the faster the payment, there's no mail float, no one's holding on to anything. All of that is a lot quicker. And of course, the real-time versus batch, that's a pretty self-explanatory one as well. I don't have to wait till 6:30 at night for all the banks to change hands. It's happening real time, so I get my money quicker. The other one is, of course, reducing the operations. So this one comes in when digital, the concern is I don't get enough information with my digital payment. And today we know that that's still the case in a lot of the payment types. With the move to ISO, with real-time rail having enhanced information capability to send along with a payment, that's also slowly going away as a misconception, right? Because now I can actually tell you what I'm paying you for, which of the 6 invoices this $10,000 payment attributes to, and then you on the other side receiving that can go ahead and do your reconciliation a lot simpler. And that momentum is going to keep going. As more payment types get access to enhanced data, the MX to MT transformation, MT to MX transformation, all that stuff that's going along with all this modernization is going to just keep increasing the information we can provide on digital payments. So no longer is someone going to feel like I have to have that physical stub to make my life easier on the back end for reconciliation.
Yeah, always top of mind if in terms of the treasury ops of our corporate commercial clients, right? Is how to do more with less. It's been a key theme in the treasury space for a long time, I'd say, and now we're finally getting some tools that can help sort of really accelerate that digitization and drive some efficiencies in the end-to-end processes, especially with the rich data. Joseph, a lot of our business that we do is with multinationals that kind of start maybe here in Canada or are anchored here in Canada, but have a lot of operation on the ground in your region. What are you hearing from our global customers in those various jurisdictions?
Yeah, I think similar to what we do, like we create centers of expertise in some places across the globe, no? Or hubs, operational hubs here in Canada, or contact center hubs in some other locations. They behave the same. No, what I am seeing is they are creating payments hub in Mexico, for example, or I have an automaker that have a regional treasury out of Frankfurt. So what they need is access to the information to being able to make decisions from a single location and have control over a multi-country operation. No? So a lot of things that are important. Accessibility to the information, like real-time access to information, payments execution, and very important, security. Yeah, provide the security and the feeling of security, because it's not only ensure that we have a secure platform, but they also need to feel that their information is protected, that their payments are going to go through. So those are some of the things and the themes that we are seeing in the region. One of the other trends that I'm seeing in the multinational and that has been, I think, very important both for multinationals but also for governments is the supply chain finance products. Helping the smaller suppliers through this type of finance when they know that there is an invoice that could be discounted to provide liquidity to the smaller company. They are being very active trying to provide that line of credit in partnership with the banks during these difficult times.
Great, thank you. And a lot of the things that we're doing here obviously is targeted and catering to those multinational and corporate audiences, but they all bring sort of unique needs. You can't really paint our corporate clients with the same brush necessarily. Their needs differ; they're pretty unique. And when you start to factor in the localization, the different states of the transformation that's happening across every country across our footprint, there's really a lot of imperatives that we have to balance between client needs and modernization. But at the center of it is really trying to come out with that consistent global experience for our corporate client base. What does it really translate to? Maybe Greg, you can start.
A lot of headaches and a lot of sleepless nights is what it translates to. I was thinking back, I'm remembering linchpin now, and based on the way Joseph answered that last question, I see where linchpin comes from, because there was a lot of technology in his answer.
Maybe Keystone's a better way to frame it.
Yeah, I think from a strategic perspective, we want to look like one bank to all the customers that we serve, regardless of how many different countries they're in, and that's not something that we have been successful at to this point. If you think about how acquisitions are done, there are two things that you're trying to do right off the bat. You're trying to find efficiencies, and you're trying to make sure that you've got the capabilities that the clients in the old they've got the comparable in the new. And what the pivot is now is, okay, now let's look like one bank and make sure that when we're serving a multinational out of Chile, it's the same experience that they get in Colombia. They can see their cash positions across those jurisdictions. It's something that I'm really focused on, is probably the next big thing for us to conquer in order to be successful as a bank. So I think I answered your question, Dougal.
Yeah, I think the reality is a lot of the I guess capabilities in the old world, quote unquote, have been present with things like the MT reporting messages, etc., and Swift. But with this this shift to on-demand services, it becomes even more imperative that investments are really viewed in a consistent target state lens, right?
Yeah, look at I want to be able to move my own personal money around seamlessly in real time to be able to use it for whatever I'm doing, and which includes across borders. So treasurers want to be able to do the exact same thing. Business owners want to be able to do that exact same thing, and that's the MT structure. The MT reporting structure, the 900 series, well, good, doesn't satisfy that need for the future. So that's where the big opportunity and challenge for us is to conquer that globally.
Joseph, anything to add there from your side?
No, definitely that's something that the regional and global treasurers are looking for. Like we get requests or we get invitations to RFPs every other month to participate in this. They also need a standardization. Why? Well, they want to reduce the frictions and the processes across their own footprints. Yeah, standardization is also good for their business, because if they have a standard process, they can reduce the cost of their operations. So it's definitely a win-win, and that's what we are pushing this agenda so hard.
I just want to jump in. It's a win for domestic base as well, because even though most of our customers in Canada, they're dealing with at least one person across the border. Very few are purely Canadian. So anything we can do to keep the Scotiabank feel consistent is a win domestically as well.
Yeah, great point. This one's more targeted to you, Joseph, but if you look at everything we have to get done in a modernization journey, it's not easy for a bank to do it on its own, and especially when you've got a global footprint to cater to. There's a lot that we have to take on and be able to kind of balance and prioritize. to deliver on that sort of end client value prop. Where do partnerships really fit in to help augment that value prop and really give us that ability to deliver to our clients, given the complexity of all of the different jurisdictional requirements that we're faced with?
I think you mentioned a little bit about that when you said multinationals have different needs depending on the industry that they are. You know? So one angle is, for example, specific industries, let's say e-commerce, specific solutions. So that's where I see a huge opportunity to partner with fintechs or e-commerce companies to accept and to bring those flows to the bank and provide value-added solutions to specific industries. For example, hospitality is one that comes to my mind. No, they have very specific needs about booking and how to do their whole process that probably we're not going to build. But if we partner with the right fintech, we can bring those flows and we can provide a very comprehensive solution. No? Car dealers is another one that could be benefit from a partnership. So there are different verticals where we could definitely partner. And fintech are disrupting all this. They are really decomposing the payments ecosystem. So chances are that there is already an IT partner already trying to disrupt that specific use case that we could use and we could bring to our shop and integrate. And now that we are building a better platform, like with microservices and in the cloud, that will facilitate the ingestion of those applications into our solution.
Awesome.
You're on mute.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
I love the fact that the technology guy hasn't used any tech buzzword yet, and the international transaction banking guy has thrown out buzzwords like crazy. I love it.
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, okay?
You must be doing the right thing.
Testament.
You know, you say things long enough, people start to repeat you. That's a really good thing. Yeah, like some of those high growth sectors like e-com and whatnot. You know, for a bank that doesn't necessarily have an in-house acquiring arm, you know, partnerships a bit of an obvious piece. But where you've got strengths in different sectors like the automotive sector, et cetera, it's important that you start to look at you know, different solutions that might be out there that, you know, realistically you're unlikely to build something yourself that's going to compete at scale with some of those different entities that are out there. And so partnerships starts coming into play there to really integrate this platform of the future with that end-to-end client journey that we're so focused on. So we mentioned talent earlier, and you know, talent's a big part of this. It's you can't really avoid a payments conversation without talking about talent these days. The war for talent is real. It's a challenge across every sort of domain and adjacency to the payment space. But with our global footprint, we've got some unique access to talent and experiences as a result of, you know, where we do business. And I want to kind of do a bit of a double click on sort of what unique capabilities our footprint provides to us in that regard, in how it caters to how achieving the goals that we're up against from a modernization journey perspective. Greg, why don't you start with the technology side? I know it's a hyper competitive space out there right now, and you know, throughput and capacity is a big part of getting things done according to the agenda. So maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, first of all, the war for talent is a global war. It's not just unique to Canada in payments. I see it across our entire footprint. You know, I have a unique that I have, you know, I've got a team that's made up of people from a number of different countries. And I see challenges in recruiting all the time. Some of it may be because certain technologies are not leveraged extensively in certain markets where we use them in Canada or they're used in Mexico. So we get a little bit of challenge of that of just from a tooling adoption perspective. There are different challenges that way, but you know, the benefits far outweigh. So you know, we do business in many different markets. It's important for me as a technology leader to have people that represent those markets, that understand the local regulators, that understand the local market conventions, and quite honestly, understand the culture. I've been shocked as we deal with our cash management application globally on how languages are different across what I would think would be the same, because culturally they're different. And I can see Joseph smiling because he knows that I've been shocked many times by some of the things that I've learned over the last number of months. So it's really important that we have representation in our teams globally, which is, and again, getting back to my original COVID comment, is I've learned a tremendous amount about how we can work differently, but just as effectively. So we're bringing in people with a lot of experiences and different experiences, but are relevant to the markets and the customers that we serve. So that by far allows us to build solutions, to deploy solutions that are going to work in the local markets. And I think it's good for all the team. I'm going to go on a little bit more here. It's really good for the other team members because they're gaining all those perspectives as well, and they're growing as well. So I've got people that are working on solutions for different countries that are based in Canada and vice versa. So we're able to deploy our resources a lot more effectively, which is fantastic from my perspective, to make sure we're investing in the right things. But for everyone else, they're breaking down cultural barriers. They're learning a lot about other people, and they're learning about other markets, and you're learning from each other. So because we are able to bring some high-skilled people from different jurisdictions.
We're definitely seeing the benefits of all that here. One big one is when we have a holiday, they don't. So you come in Monday and all your data is waiting there for you because technology has pulled it because they were working. But also the flip side is we also have people who we would think generally we'd only been competing to find a body, between the people and players in Canada. Now that COVID's sort of broken barriers, that's not the case anymore. Someone that we may interview may also have 6 interviews in 5 other countries. So, and not only that, it's not only FIs anymore. Payments has grown. The space is big. Joseph mentioned fintechs. So we're not only competing with our other FI partners for top talent, we're competing with the fintechs, and even like the giant conglomerates who are, they used to focus on shipping and now they're getting into payments, right? So it's a small world, but there's a lot of people going after the same skill set these days. And so it is getting difficult to find top talent and to retain them, right? We have some benefits working at Scotiabank, and a fintech will come up along and be like, oh, we move quick, fast, and we're shiny. So you're like, all right, if that's what that person's looking for, we may not have all the benefits to keep them here anymore. So we have to keep adopting our own models in Canada for sure to make sure that we're keeping talent, we're keeping them interested, challenged, and of course, hoping to stay with Scotiabank longer.
And being able to cross-pollinate across the footprint where possible is a big part of that, right?
Yep, definitely.
Joseph, what's your take?
Yeah, definitely do these best practices forums where people from multiple countries can come and talk about what they are working on, keeping the pulse on the local and see what could be adopted by other markets is super key. So our product owners definitely have to be aware of what is happening, have to be connected with the local rails, with the local associations to ensure that they know what is happening and where the market is going. So definitely we are lucky that we have this great footprint and that we can bring talent from multiple jurisdictions and that we can create these spaces now where we could share that knowledge to everyone.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see sort of just that transition that we're going through as a bank through all different jurisdictions on this journey. And to Greg's earlier point, people pick up experiences based on the different programs and projects that they're associated with, but that becomes things, especially when you look at the real-time shift. It becomes sort of an iterative sort of learning for individuals who are involved in the program and started at in one country and can now start to parlay those experiences into another country and the different investments we're making there. So
yeah, one last thing that I wanted to touch on people and talent. One key thing is to reinforce the purpose or the why we are doing things, because we talk a lot about the payments, reducing friction. What does that mean? What is the real impact in the economy by reducing this friction? What are we doing? Like we have been talking about a platform that we are launching, okay, something that we're building for Mexico, something that we're building for Colombia. What does that mean in terms of the human beings that are going to be touched or impacted by this new solution? We're talking about 150,000 probably companies in these two countries, probably 2 to 3 users. So we're talking about 500,000 people. No, so create that awareness when we're talking to our teams is key, because sometimes they just get into the flow and the payment and the bug and solving the problem. Hey, take a step back and look what you are doing. Look all the lives that you are impacting by the work that we are doing here. So that's key, and of course we try to reinforce those messages every time we can.
Absolutely. Thank you. That I think brings us to time. All great points. I think we've heard a lot from you. You really helped lay out sort of how our digital journey continues across our footprint as we continue to progress through this transformative time in payments. That really brings our discussion section to a close, but we got some time for some questions from the audience. So Suman, I'll turn it back over to you, and you can kind of start to present some of those questions that are coming into the group here, and see if you can keep Greg confined to a certain period of time here as we can bring it to a close.
Thank you so much, Dougal, and thank you everyone for a great discussion. As the questions are starting to come by, actually, I have one for this group, and it's really, we're talking about talent and, going to war. And I just wanted to shift focus on just mental health and mental wellness. In the keynote, Rania and Tracy spoke about how it's important, especially in these times, to focus on people. So I just wanted to hear your views as people leaders. What is it that you're trying to do to keep the teams from, being at a sustainable pace, I guess?
So I can start on that one, Suman. So on our team, we've taken sort of a let's put it in their own hands approach. One, we reinforce consistently, manage your own calendar, block off time. If you don't want to answer at 5 o'clock, don't. Everyone's sort of working at their own time frames now, and we know that, but that doesn't mean you have to, right? So what you're capable of doing, what you're comfortable with, work to what you do, and no one is going to look at you if you've blocked off 3 hours on Friday and not take a meeting. That's totally fine and acceptable. We know work still has to get done, and we want you to be able to do that. And of course, taking your vacations is a big one. Yes, you're not going anywhere fancy anymore, but just close the screen. Don't look at it for a while. Don't answer it. Pretend we're not here. Just so you get that time to recharge and refresh. And everything's digital, so it's a little bit hard, but we still try to have those like fun, casual interactions. We have like a fun Friday where everyone just kind of like chats. Really, that's basically what it is. Try to keep social, so little mock those in the hall conversations where you can. But we also realize that no one wants to sit in front of the screen all day. So it's a give and take between what we're doing here for sure.
Yeah, on our team, we try to keep up that end of day team huddle where it's just casual conversation. To Kim's point, it's an important touch point for the team to kind of feel still connected outside the day-to-day grind, so to speak, of what can become a very all-encompassing, all-consuming thing really quickly if you're not able to defend your calendar appropriately. But one of the key things I think is doing taking the time for a vacation. Take a day, a Friday or a Monday or what have you. Fancy takes on a different connotation when all you've been doing is just sitting in front of a laptop for the last 15 months, right? Walking out to my back deck feels like a really great place to be after spending more than 18 hours in the same room I sleep and work throughout the pandemic. So it's about encouraging, it's about setting an example, and it's about making sure that people don't feel obligated, to Kim's point about after hour responses and whatnot. I think top of mind in the leadership circles is who are you emailing or who are you conversing with in the after hours, and being very conscious about who's actively responding to some of those things, and maybe peeling it back a bit and stepping away from sending those mobile emails when they don't need to be sent.
Maybe I'll go. It's assuming I should turn the question around on you because you work for me, so you could tell me how I'm doing it and if I'm doing it well. But I think keep it light. When it's appropriate. Those who work at Scotiabank will probably know that my background is usually my gym or my spin bike, which has been a topic of a lot of the material that I put out regularly in various social media forums. So keep it light, show that there's other interests in life. Be empathetic, even more empathetic right now than normal, which is a good trait to carry forward. And I find I listen a lot more. Just listen, just ask questions and listen. As a leader, I'm used to going and talking like this. what I've tried to practice over the last year and a half is go to forums and just listen, ask questions and listen.
Yeah, in my case, a lot of the same themes, like a little bit of a huddle here and there every week, just to make them feel that they are part of the team. But also some of them asked to create spaces where we will bring other people from other teams to chat with them, to connect with them, because that casual interaction with the other teams was lost. Unless you really have a project there. So we have created these spaces, at least one in a month, where we bring people from other teams to talk with my team and okay, what are you working on? What is happening? And they make them also feel that they are still connected with what is happening at the bank. It's not only about our department, but also what the others are doing.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your insights. Greg, I would say you're doing a great job, because I was super comfortable at 9 a.m. taking a call from my treadmill, because my 9 a.m. got canceled and I decided to do a 20-minute run. And that's when Greg called me. So that shows that, there's full transparency and there's the work-life balance that we focus on. And again, I work with all of you. So I feel like, again, everyone is doing a great job. I just wanted everyone else to hear, how much value we put on people and the work-life balance, even pre-COVID. Greg, here's a question for you. The industry has accelerated the pace at which digitization is happening. What are you hoping to see Scotiabank achieve from a technology build perspective within the next 12 to 18 months?
A lot. I guess that's maybe the simple answer. There's a lot of different things that we're we're working on from a digitization perspective, and it gets into let's deliver services that our customers actually want. That's the number one thing. I could talk about a lot of things that we're doing, and we're using a lot of components, but at the end of the day, it's I want to see us I want to make sure we're hitting the mark on fulfilling our customers' needs.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Kim, another question for you. Could you shed some insight into some of the new cross-border initiatives that will help improve the wires payments process?
Sure. So I think the big one that's coming up in Canada, of course, is the migration to links. And so the movement away from, and also accepting MX messages, right? So again, that goes back to the data. More data coming with your wire payment, more standardized, seamless reconciliation, more straight through processing. So hopefully quicker processing times for wires is what we're hoping to see. And of course, there's also the shift to cross-border payments away from the traditional wire, right? Something that's more streamlined, more simple, uses real-time rails in other countries. That's also a big one that we're expecting to grow as more banks get on board and have their own capabilities to do so. We're planning to enhance ours in the coming year and a half as well. So those are probably two big things we're expecting to see as wires. One, wires will become a little bit easier to use, and two, people move off of wires because they don't need that piece because we have other rails that can do the same job.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. We've got a question from V now. What is the number one focus item in your mind for moving Scotia's dial on the digital transformation project? Dougal, would you want to take that one?
Sure. I think the number one thing is being able to deliver those on-demand services. So Joseph kind of hinted at some of this, the microservice shift, right? How do you take the existing cash management payments platform and really deconstruct it into those increments of value that customers can kind of use as tools to innovate their own transformation and deliver end value into places in their payment process and payment journeys in ways that our existing services maybe can't. And so that's a key imperative, and we're well on our way to be able to do so.
Thank you, Dougal. Joseph, would you like to add anything from the international front perspective?
No, I think that's it. I mean, in my case, it's about making it global, making it regional. That's what we are working on. So if we can definitely bring different applications to multiple jurisdictions and accelerate our time to market, I think that we are going to definitely make a dent to our competition now.
Yep, thank you. That's great to hear. Another question we had come in is, it's especially hard for employees who've joined the team, one of your teams, during the pandemic. How did you make them feel welcome and be a part of the team?
So we've had three four people joined during the pandemic. So it's been a nice turnover time for us in the wild. But I would say that we've done a pretty good job because I think most people are just open to all of it now, right? Everyone's used to having that virtual coffee chat. They're used to the round tables, meeting the team in little chunks. So we all make time in our calendars for those type of sessions because we know it's important, right? We want to make people feel welcome, feel like they're part of the team as soon as we can. And doing that is getting, virtual face-to-face, so to speak, with everyone that they need to talk to. And of course, getting the stakeholders involved. So again, a lot of that comes down to everyone is open to it. They're making acceptabilities in their calendars. And of course, we are definitely much better at getting technology through mail to our people who are not in the office anymore. So addressing that earlier, we're getting those things set up sooner so that no one's waiting, 2 or 3 days for their laptop to show up at their doorstep.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I agree. We've had quite a few people join us, and it's just become the new norm. Everyone's just used to it. They know they're not going to meet their colleagues in person, and it's going to be virtual, right? So it's just we've all accepted it.
I'd add a frequency of touch point, I think, is a big one. It's different when you're, speaking virtually with people who you've worked closely with in person over a course of time. But when you're introduced to somebody virtually and they're integrated into the team virtually and they're part of everything that we're doing in the virtual world, keeping that sort of early touch point on an ongoing, frequent basis. We had several people join our team as well. And it's important to make sure that there's that ongoing connectivity, and then maybe you can kind of let them sort of get out into the different groups and workshops and whatnot as they grow through their early days in transition. But it's about kind of connection and connectivity, right?
Yep. Joseph, one question for you. From an international standpoint, in terms of Scotia's footprint, where do you anticipate real-time payment systems to accelerate the most over the next 2-3 years, and why?
Well, we are almost there. Like, we have near real time in Chile. We have some flavor of real time in Peru. Mexico has been with real time for a while. Colombia is probably the one that is still pending to catch up in the region. So I see that definitely real time payments is here to stay, and that's not going to change. So what do we do with that? What are the other applications that we can put on top of that? Is what is going to be interesting. How can we reduce friction? Because in every market that where we have seen that real-time payments come, the adoption is huge. In the UK was impressive, exponential. Mexico was the same. Brazil, driven again by the central bank, has had a huge adoption. So I think we're going to see more of the same. The only thing that is really changing the payments ecosystem is regulator disrupting some of the credit card monopolies in the region and duopolies. So that's something that we're going to see more. We're going to see more disruption enforced by the regulator in the credit card side of the business across our international footprint.
Awesome. Thank you, Joseph. We're almost out of time, but I'll ask one last question from the audience. With the increase in real-time payments, will the shortened time create an increased opportunity for fraudsters as the recourse period is now a matter of minutes?
Greg, this is for you.
That's for me, is it? I think, all of us as banks are very, are focused for the bankers in the community here, very focused on our fraud capabilities, and we're no exception. As part of our payments modernization, we've invested heavily in our real-time capabilities. And one of the big things that we've got on our agenda is taking those things global. So because the opportunity is there, the reality of the world is that anytime there's anything new, it attracts attention. So as we roll things out new, that's one of the things that we have to take care of right away is AML and fraud. It has to be there. It can't be layered in later. And that's a little bit of a difference in the last few years, but it's a focus. It's on our mind. I think probably doesn't go a week go by that we don't talk about fraud in detail.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I agree and I hear you. It's just as real-time payments evolve, every bank is investing in their fraud monitoring solutions as well to stay on top of that. So with that, thank you so much to the audience for all the questions and for joining us here today. This was a fantastic discussion. A big thank you to all of our panelists, Dougal, Greg, Joseph, and Kim, for sharing some great insights as it relates to Scotiabank's modernization journey, both domestically and globally. It was great to hear what is on top of mind for customers and how Scotiabank is responding, given all of these external challenges and impacts at play, whether it's around people, products, or payments. At the end of it all, as we continue to shift towards digitization, Scotiabank will continue to keep customer on top, regardless of the geographical location. Have a great rest of the afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much.